So let's go and make a new page. First of all, we need to use a CDN. So this CDN, I will include it in a text file in the project, so make sure you look for that. So I just figured out that I have the wrong CDN. Make sure you paste in the correct one, which is Font Awesome CDN. And okay, so then we're just gonna have a title, which is Apple, and we're gonna have a body section. The body section just we'll get started now. It started with the navigation section, navigation bar. So we're gonna have nav, and then for the class we're gonna have top 0, which basically makes it stuck to the top, and then we're gonna give it absolute positioning, and we're gonna give it Z50, which makes it come like to the front of the website, and then we're gonna give it width full, so it can take up the full width. We're gonna be using flex and flex wrap, so that when we have smaller displays, the elements inside it will be wrapped. And we're gonna center it using item center, so the items of it will be center. So for justify between, we need to also add the end to make them spread out. So one is all the way to the left, and the other one is all the way to the right. And we're gonna have some padding X and Y, so px2 for horizontal padding, and then vertical padding py3. Okay, so now inside this navigation section we're gonna have a div. So we're gonna have 2 divs basically, and the first one we're gonna start it like this. So we're gonna use the container class and do px4 for horizontal padding, margin auto, mx auto, and we'll use flex and flex wrap to make sure that the items will be wrapped on different displays, and item center. Finally, justify between as well. So now inside this div, let's see, we're gonna have another div. For this div, we're gonna give it width full, and it's going to be relatively positioned. So we're gonna use relative, and we're gonna use flex and justify between. And so for large displays, we're gonna make the width auto, and we're gonna make it static, and we're gonna make it a block as well, so it takes up the entire width. And for large displays, we're also gonna have justify start, so that all the elements are actually inserted at the beginning in the left, from left to right. Okay, so after that we're gonna have an anchor, and for this anchor we're gonna use text SM. We want to make the font bold, and we're gonna relax the leading, so we're gonna do leading relaxed. Alright, so now let's block the inline block, and then let's see what else we have. So I'm R4, so margin right 4, and then padding vertical 2, py2. Now we want to prevent wrapping, so we'll use white space no wrap, because white people can't wrap. So let's go and search white space no wrap. Let's see the different variations in Tailwind. So anything you need, just search for it and write Tailwind CSS. The documentation is very clear, and you can find anything you need. So these are all the different variations, as you can see, and this explains it right over here. So it basically prevents wrapping when an element, when you have a small width and the element has to wrap down, it would prevent it from wrapping. So let's get back to the code, and we also want to use uppercase to make the text capital inside the anchor, and we also want to make it white. And we're gonna have home, so it will take us to the home section. So let's have a look and let's see how this all looks. Hopefully it looks good. Also, we want to give it a black background as well, so do BG black inside the body. This is just temporary, the BG black. I'm going to remove it, and I'm going to be depending on a black video, so, and all these white elements will show very clearly. So let's have a look. Let's see what's okay. It looks very good so far. So now we need to continue the navigation bar and do the different buttons as well. So next we're going to be adding a button. So right button and then dots. So for the class we're going to have cursor pointer, because we want to cursor pointer, and then we're going to do text large, extra large, sorry, and we're going to have leading none because there's no leading, so we can't relax the leading, so leading none. I'm joking. Let me explain this to you. So just to explain these classes, cursor pointer will actually, when you hover over the button, it will show up like a hand symbol, like just like that, as you can see. And text large is basically self-explanatory. And what leading none does, so you have different types of spacing between text. So let's just search for this inside the Tailwind documentation. So as you can see, you have all these variations, and leading none, these are the examples. So we have leading none, leading tight, leading snug, normal, and then relaxed and loose. So as you can see, the reading loose, it gives it more spacing between them, and leading none, it makes it the least spacing between them. So we want to use leading none. And then, so after we have done this button, let's see what else can we, okay, so we also need to give it some padding, horizontal and padding vertical, so px3 and py1, so for vertical as well. And we're also going to give it a border, and we'll make the border solid and make it also transparent as well, and rounded, so we'll give it some sort of border radius. And the background will also make it transparent for the button. Okay, we also want to make this into a block element. And for large devices, we want to hide this button. So LG hidden, and we're going to make the outline none. We don't want any outline for this button. And when we focus, okay, let me just carry on. Let's finish this first. And when we focus on the button, when the button is in focus, we want to do outline none. Okay, so now let's have a look how it looks like. Let's well, actually, let's just finish it off. The type equals button, and we have it on click as well. We'll just do in a second. Let's just see how it looks first. So now we also need to have an icon for the navigation bar. So when we click on, when we're on a small screen, we want to see a hamburger icon. So when we click it, it will open up the menu. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to have, we're going to make it white using text white, and we're going to use font awesome, and we're going to use the hamburger icon, which is FA bars. The outline, we're removing it so we can actually show the font awesome icon. As you can see over here, we're also hiding it for large screen and large devices because we don't need it. It's only for hamburger menus. So now if we go to the mobile device, we can actually see it. Okay. So for the on-click listener, we will call a function. So the function, let's see, we'll call it toggle navbar. So this will basically toggle the navbar, and we will pass in the ID, which is example collapse navbar. And now let's implement this toggle navbar function. So let's go all the way down, have some script tags, and then do function. So we'll actually write function toggle navbar, and this will take collapse ID as the parameter, so we can toggle the actual elements by its ID. And we're gonna do document.getElement by ID, that good stuff, and then collapse ID, and then class list toggle hidden, and we'll also copy and paste this, and we'll also have block, so that way we can toggle the block. And so that will basically toggle the hidden attribute. So the class hidden, if it's true, it will be false. If it's false, it will be true. And for the same thing with the block as well. Okay, so right below the div, we want to have another div. So below the button and div, we're going to have a new div, and for the class, we'll use, so for large screens we'll use Flex, and we'll use Flex Grow to allow this div to take up the entire area. Then we will center it as well using item center, so the items inside this div will be centered, and the background can be white, so we'll use BG white. And for large screens we want to make the background transparent, and also for large screens we want to make the shadow none, and we also want to make it hidden. Okay, now for the ID we also want to give it an ID, which is example collapse navbar. This way we can actually toggle it using its ID. Okay, so now we're gonna have, so basically as you can see over here, just like what we've done, we toggle it based on the example collapse navbar ID, so it will find it and it will basically toggle it, make it hidden or make it visible. Okay, so now we want to have a unordered list using UL, unified list. So for this list we're going to give it a class. Now the class we'll use is Flex, so we'll be using Flex, and we'll do Flex call. And for large devices we'll make it into a row, so if the device is a large screen, then we'll be actually using a row for this list. And then we'll also do list none and margin right auto. So in our case we want to use list none because we're not using any bullet points for our list items. There's actually a few variations, let's check them out on Tailwind. Okay, so as you can see there's 3 types. So the one we're using is list none, there's list decimal, and you have bullet points numbered and no bullet points. So yeah, whenever you want anything you can just search it on Tailwind and it will explain everything. If any of these classes you don't understand, just search it on Tailwind. Okay, so let's see, we'll have a list item inside this list, and for this list item we'll use Flex and we'll center the items inside this list item. So inside this list item we're going to have anchor, so it will actually take us to the so we're going to be using the iPad section for this anchor, so it will take us to the iPad section. And now for the class we're going to use text white for large screens, and on large screens we're going to have hover. When we hover over it we'll make the text grey with a shade of 300. So on LG hover we'll have text grey, and there's a lot of shades, we'll use 300 for this shade. And if it's not hovered then we'll use a shade of 800, so text grey, shade of 800. And also I want to add some padding for horizontal and vertical, so for horizontal we'll do px3 and for vertical padding we'll use 4. And on large devices we'll use we'll do py2. And okay, so we also want to add some flex to this one and center the items inside this anchor. Now we also want to make the text small, extra small actually, and we also want to capitalize the text and make it bold. So we'll use uppercase and font bold as well. We need to do that. And now we need to have an icon inside this. Okay, so for this icon we'll do text for large devices. We'll do text gray 300 and we'll do text gray 500 for other devices. And also for we want to have font awesome icon, so we'll use the tablet icon, FA tablets, and we'll make the text large and we'll make it bigger using leading large. Okay, so now we've done the icon. But now we will want to add iPad to it as well. Like the anchor text will have iPad, so the user knows this is the iPad section, and you can open it. So let's have a look at so far what we've reached. Okay, as you can see, we need some more padding or margin between these two. Let's give it some margin right as well to give it some space between the icon. Okay, now let's do the other. So let's just refresh. Okay, it's working. So now let's have another list item inside this navigation bar, and so all we're going to change is we're going to copy paste it. The only thing we're going to change is the ID. Let's make it to MacBook, so it will take us to the MacBook section, and also the icon. Let's change it to. Let's have a look at font awesome libraries. Let's see if there's a nice icon that we can select. Also the text, we want to make it MacBook as well. Make sure you do that. Search for MacBook. Okay, that's a good one. Let's just take this icon. So instead of FA tablets, we're going to do FA laptop. Let's see how that looks. Okay, beautiful. Now let's copy and paste this list item as well, so we can do it again for the team section. So for the team section, we need to change the ID again. So we want to change the anchor text as well. We'll do team, and also the icon. So let's go over to Font Awesome. Let's have a look at some icons for teams. Okay, that looks pretty nice, yeah. So we'll just use the users. Now let's have a look. Okay, that looks very nice. Now it's looking much better. Okay, let's carry on. Now we have another section that we need to add, which is contact us. So again, copy and pasting it, changing the ID to contact us, and we'll change it just contact is enough, and contact us for the anchor text, and that should be. We need to have like a message icon or something like that. Let's search for an icon. Okay, that looks nice. Take this one. That looks very nice. Okay, now so we want to have another UL, another list over here for the right section of the navigation bar. So we're done with the left section. We're doing the right section now. Okay. So for the class, we want to do flex and flex call. So it will be, we'll use flex, and we'll make it into a column. The direction of it will be a column, and for large devices, we'll make it into a row. The list will be none, so we don't have any bullet points again. And for large screens, we want to have margin left auto. So that way, it will be aligned all the way to the right. Okay, now inside this list section, we'll have a few list items right over here. So this is going to be the social icons. So the first one is going to be a Facebook icon. So okay, for this list item, we're going to have flex and item center, so that the items are centered inside this list item. And the first thing we'll have is the anchor. Now this anchor, we'll make it white for large devices using LG text white. And for large devices as well, large screens, we're going to do hover. When you hover over it, it will change to the text grey with a shade of 300. And when you are not hovered over it, it will be text grey 800 actually. Okay, now for padding, horizontal padding we'll do 3, and for vertical padding we will do 4. Then for large devices we'll do padding 2 for vertical padding, and we'll use flex item center. We'll use flex and we'll use item center to center the items. After we centered the items, we want to make the text really small, so we'll do text XS, extra small. So we want to also make the font bold and make it capitals as well. Why not? Okay, so now inside this we're gonna have an icon inside this. And for this icon, let's make it grey 300 for large devices, and we'll do 500 for all the other devices. And we'll use font awesome icon. So right over here we want to have a Facebook icon. So let's search for a Facebook icon on the font awesome library. Okay, this one looks very nice. So let's select this one. Okay. So now we want to make text large to make it larger, and we'll also do leading large as well. Now inside this we're gonna have a span. After the icon, we're gonna have a span, and the span will basically, the class will be hidden on large devices, and we'll use inline block and margin left 2. Now let's see how that looks. So this span is only for other devices that are not large screen, so it will be hidden for large devices, and the inline block will basically take up the whole block, the entire block, and margin left 2 will basically give it some margin left from the left side. That way it won't be stuck to the side. So as you can see, when we go to, if we go for small devices, and you can see how it looks like. So it will basically take up the entire section, and it will have a small margin left. Okay, so now let's continue with the other icons. So we want to copy and paste the Facebook icon, so we can have one for the Twitter icon. It's going to be the same thing. All we have to change is the icon name, which is Twitter. Okay, and now also we have an issue with this large flex row. We also want to change it and use a colon instead of a semicolon. So that would have been an issue, so make sure you do that. So let's refresh now. As you can see, it looks very nice. And now let's continue with the other stuff. So the last thing that we want to add in the right side of the navigation bar is a button, a call to action button. So the user can click it, like for example we'll do buy new MacBook. So this will be very clear to the user. Okay, so now for this button we want to make it white. And so first actually we want to have a list item. This is going to be inside the list item, and then for the list item class, flex and item center, just like I explained before. So it will use flex and it will center the items inside it. And then the button, so the button will use BG white, and we'll text rate 800. So we'll make it white, and we'll make the text 800 color shade, sorry. And when it's active we'll do 100, so we'll make it much lighter when the button is actually active. So we'll do BG gray 100, and we'll make the text really small using text excess. And for the font we'll make it bold, and we'll also capitalize the characters of the text. Let's give it some padding, 4 and 2, 4 for horizontal and 2 for vertical. Now we also want to make it rounded and give it a shadow, so that we will have a nice border radius and it will have a bit of a shadow. And when we hover over it, we want to make the so we'll give it a shadow as well for medium devices when we hover over it. No. We'll make it a medium shadow. The shadow will be medium shade, and the outline will also be none. And when we're focusing on it, the outline will also be none. And for large devices, we'll give it some margin right, and then we'll give the margin bottom 0 as well for large devices, and margin bottom 0, yeah, for large devices. And margin left 3 and margin bottom 3 for other devices. Okay, now for the type, it's going to be a button, and the text will have buying new MacBook, for example. So the call to action will be buying a new MacBook. Let's have a look. Let's see how that looks so far. Okay, that looks very clean now, very beautiful. Let's add the icon next to the text. So let's see what can we do for the icon. let's search. Let's have like a circle down, arrow pointing down, something like that. Let's search for something cool and awesome. Okay, that looks nice. So let's take this one. And let's see how that looks, this icon. Okay, that looks much better now. As you can see, the icon is quite stuck to the text, so let's give it some margin right too. So we'll do R2. And now let's refresh, that looks much better now. Okay, so now we should be done with the navigation bar. Now we can go ahead and get started with the homepage main section.